After Donald Trump called for a temporary ban on Muslims entering the U.S., the topic has been widely debated on and off the campaign trail.
Republican strategist and CBS News contributor Frank Luntz led a focus group of 16 Muslim Americans last night to get their take.
How does it feel that your faith is at the core of one of the most disruptive, divisive political conversations in a long, long time? How does that make you feel?
I feel optimistic because this gives me a chance and us a chance to tell you guys who we really are. We're in the spotlight, we're in the media, and we haven't had this type of attention before. And we can focus on the negative, or we can be positive, and we can be inspiring, and we can be hopeful.
Frank, I think it's an opportunity for us to share a narrative. American Muslims come from 77 different countries, speak over 100 different languages and dialects. We're lumped together a lot in the media, and largely the narrative is something of ISIS or someone else. That's not our religion, that's not our narrative. And I think it's time for us to take that back.
I also think that it's important not to ignore the fact that all this painful conversation is not necessarily positive, even though it is an opportunity. Oftentimes there are manifestations of violence of this rhetoric.
Now, you said it's painful.
Yeah.
How is it painful?
Because my faith is representative of part of who I am. And for me to see that it has been so demonized is painful, and it's scary.
I actually did a call out to Muslim parents across the country to not watch the Republican debate in front of their children, because I knew that subjecting our children to hear the hateful stereotyping and the lumping of Muslims with terrorism in front of our children is actually something that psychologically impacts them. So that's how deep this is for us.
But don't you want the kids to know the challenges that they face?
I don't want my children to be subjected to racism or the vilification of their faith. I will explain to my kids in my own way, in the way that I can speak to them, and I will not allow Donald Trump to tell my kids how they should feel about being Muslim.
Right. How many of you are physically afraid? Oh, yeah. Because you're physically afraid?
After 9/11, I was in 5th grade and I was actually slapped by another student at school for being Muslim. So as a child growing up post 9/11, I was physically attacked. That was a part of my childhood, and it's getting worse.
How many of you have been physically attacked? Tell me what happened.
When I was 16 years old, I was attacked in New York City as I was walking down the street. A man attempted to remove my headscarf, and I was able to escape. As a result of that, I actually founded an organization to teach Muslim women self-defense. In the past 6 years, this past 3 months have been the heaviest time for us.
But do you understand why people are afraid?
I absolutely understand to a certain degree why people are afraid. We can't hide behind the fact that Americans right now, non-Muslim Americans, do feel afraid. And why do they feel afraid? They feel afraid because of what's happening abroad and because of their safety is at an issue here in America. But they also feel afraid for a deeper reason. They just don't understand. And then when they see a woman wearing a hijab or a man wearing a topi after he's prayed, they become afraid. Not because of the fact that their safety is concerned, because somebody looks different.
We're not chanting death to America, okay? We don't have bombs in our hands, okay? We're just being ourselves. And this is a narrative that's missing right now.
The point here is about the issues, and I am so sick for begging love and begging attention, like, oh, look, I'm a Muslim, I'm a doctor, I'm a Muslim, I'm a journalist. No, we're Muslim Americans. I'm proud to be a Muslim. I'm proud to be an American, and no one's gonna take that away from me, and regardless.
So I gotta ask you guys, how did you feel when you first learned that the murderer in San Bernardino held your faith?
I mean, every time that there's some kind of an attack in this country, every time that there's any kind of a crime, I'm literally praying, and I'm sure that everyone else here literally praying that it's not a Muslim. Before any facts start rolling through, we're literally praying that it's not a Muslim. And when it is, I know exactly what's going to happen.
The people that committed those heinous crimes, they were not members of my faith. I want that to be very clear.
I am not in the business of saying who's Muslim and who's not Muslim. If those people want to call themselves Muslims, then that they can call themselves Muslims.
People do not know anything about Muslims. There's a Pew poll that says more than 60% of Americans have never even met a Muslim. So how do you expect the media to portray it? We don't even have someone in the media to speak for us.
I mean, it's just laziness. It's like they don't want to blame a single person for something. They want to make a blanket statement over a whole group of people.
So then what should we do about what happened in Paris? There was not a single individual.
Engage us.
Engage us. I mean, it's
Engage
literally
us.
that easy.
And it's also not the Muslim.
The burden of responsibility shouldn't be on us, though.
Yeah. It's not the Muslim.
Why are you asking us this question, and why not ask white America the question? That is where the question belongs.
Who committed the crimes
Not
in
us.
Paris?
Not us.
Not us.
So why do we have to speak for them?
In America, what we're largely dealing with when we see acts of terrorism, they are specifically coming from disenfranchised folks who are outliers in the Muslim community.
There is a problem. There's been too many American Muslims that have committed violence, and their interpretation is such that this is in the name of religion. So I don't think we can, run away from that. There's been too many of these incidents.
Are you Muslim first or American first?
I am an American Muslim. I can be both at the same time. I don't choose one over the other. I am an American Muslim. I am both simultaneously.
We will say today that Islam does not equal terrorism. But when you go outside, the Trumps of the world will believe that. They need demonstrative proof, which they will never get, because folks that are Muslim are committing these violent acts.
I think the American people are capable of understanding that Muslims are terrorists. And I think something that's been missing from the media conversation, most ISIS recruits, most terrorist recruits actually don't know much about their religion before they get recruited.
Granted.
Usually they're very uneducated, and then they meet one radical cleric and he defines the religion for them.
You want to combat terrorism, you need Muslims. So keep pushing us out of the picture, and let's see if you can combat terrorism without our community. That's what's happening right now.
Frank, as an American and a Muslim, we're your last line of defense. And that's what we'd really like to be addressed as. A line of defense that we can draw the line in the stand and say, this is where we are, this is where we push back on terrorism. ISIS has an ideology that's not Islam. In order for us to stop this, we need to get away from rhinos like Donald Trump, and we need to start looking at how we solve these problems together as Americans.
You know, there are so many other issues besides our religion. So I'm very passionate about how do we build coalitions with people who have suffered like us? But let's all come together. You know, this is not a Muslim-only issue. You know, I'm an American. We are Americans here. You know, and we have so many facets to our identity. We cannot be characterized in this neat little box.
I think even though obviously this focus group stems from the anti-Islamic bigotry that has been happening, I also think it's very important that Muslim Americans are invited to conversations that are not only about anti-Islamic bigotry and counter-violent extremism, right? So if you're having a focus group about public health, invite a Muslim American, or economic justice, invite a Muslim American. That's what we need, diversity and inclusion.
I think the one conversation is not really being had is what's at the root of Islamophobia today. It's not just rhetoric, it's policies. And as I keep saying, policies, and we need to talk about that. What is the government doing to make a change? What has the government done that enable this kind of bigotry?
Repeating that this is un-American, that it's un-American to be hateful towards a group of people is historically inaccurate, as difficult as that is for me to say, because I want to say that this is un-American. This is not what our values are. We have targeted, we have discriminated against, we have grouped and generalized and prejudiced. We've had internment camps of groups before. This is an ugly part of our history, and hopefully not a part of our future.